And there are some states that restrict their provision of personal care to certain eligibility groups within their state plan programs. And we've reported this in journal articles, and no one has really been able to explain this. And it looks like someone's looking the other way, given that this evidence is now out there. So I don't know if anyone's got any insight into that.
Maybe Rhode Island didn't have anybody to assign to the program.
Maybe there's no need in Rhode Island, right? Yeah.
In some earlier studies, the main reason that states gave for not having the personal care program is that they were worried about the cost, and for exactly the reason that Martin said, they have to make that program available to everybody in the state that's eligible. Although New Mexico is a very interesting state, and they recently did develop a new personal care plan option, and I know Doug Holzai is here from New Mexico, so I don't know if you want to say anything about that program in New Mexico, but we are watching it closely. We do have a case study of New Mexico up on our website, by the way, if any of you want to read it in terms of what experiences New Mexico had in setting up.
Hello, my name is Doug Holtzoi, and I'm from Farmington, New Mexico. The personal care option was implemented in 1999. Our Center for Independent Living was the pilot project that took on the consumer direction. From that time period on to now, there's two models to the PCO. There's consumer directed, consumer delegated. Since 2 years ago, other agencies such as home health agencies who were practicing the home delegated or the consumer delegated became, the state gave them now the consumer more choices whether they're going to go consumer directed or consumer delegated. Also, back to the question of assessments, 2 years ago we started doing what's called a third-party assessment. Years before that, we used to do our own assessment in dealing with consumers, and it seems to be the state saw this as home health care agencies or our center doing assessment and being very biased, so they took on this new plan where a third-party assessor comes in. It seems like this is more fair for people. In our center, we have about 140 consumers on the personal care option, and within the last year, I've seen about 10 people with mental illness come on board without no difficulties. It used to be when we did our own assessment, mental illness was such a gray area that it was hard to prove to the state that this person, because of their illness, could not do certain ADLs or IADLs. But I see that as a plus. But when the third-party assessment, we were told that they would be coming in, we kind of saw that as maybe not too enlightening to our program. But I see this as opposite now, that it's a more non-biased assessment where people have no problem on getting on. And I have to say I'm very proud to be from the state of New Mexico. We're very, we've gone so far. I think a few years ago we were number 25 or 30 on home community-based service spending. Right now we're at number 2. So it took a lot of advocacy on our part. We have 9 independent living centers in New Mexico, and every year we're in Santa Fe, our state capital, lobbying for people to remain in their communities, and I'm really glad to be part of it. And I came on board with PASS, 3 years ago, when 2 researchers came to our Center for Independent Living and did a study on Native Americans who were on the PCO and how they benefited from it. Of the 140 people we have on PCO, I would say about half are Navajo people, which is my ethnicity, and it's such a good program. In the years I've worked at the center, we've got about maybe 15 people back into their homes, and our elders, the Navajo people, they have a lot of things to pass on to their younger generation. This gives us that opportunity.
Thank you, Doug. I think New Mexico is a really great example, and we're glad you're here so we can talk to you more at the break. Okay, any
Yeah,
other?
Yeah, back in the corner. Yes.
Okay, back in the corner, okay.
My name is Doris Ray, and I work at the Independence Center of Northern Virginia. We're a Center for Independent Living in Virginia, and I am hoping that we will hear more about study on this issue of first the criteria that's used for nursing home or institutional screening and the variances between states and between populations, because just from our experience working in Virginia and a study that Independence Center did under a grant from our statewide Independent Living Council on our own waiver program several years ago, indicated that that's a significant issue regarding access to the waivers, and in our state, of course, there's a medical needs criteria that's applied on everybody, including the senior community, says it needs to be changed, but nothing is ever done. And also, I think you need to look at the instrument that's used among the states for assessing or developing plans of care. In our state, for example, there are some disparities, I think, in the way people under different waivers are treated, and though now, for almost the most part, we have advanced to where technically they're supposed to be using aggregate costing for all but one of the waivers, and that there is no explicit individual cap. Often the policies used and the instruments used to assess people and develop their plans of care give the impression, and even to the fiscal agent who's monitoring this for the state, that there are caps. And the last issue, I think, is something that came up in our General Assembly, which was, and I think this is a cost factor, in our state, the nursing facilities came to the General Assembly and said we need more money because we are only able to give 4 hours of hands-on care to people or less in nursing homes and institutional settings. And this was astounding to me when I heard it out of the mouth of a legislator, because when people are assessed for waivers, the practice seems to be, well, if you need too many hours, you should be in a nursing home because you get 24 hours of care. We have to get past, I think, these, what I would call attitudinal barriers. So is there any research on these kinds of issues, and maybe you would consider it?
Okay, thank you. Martin?